All right, we are live. Guys, again, what I'm starting to do on these lives, I'm doing mostly Q&As. I'm taking your questions that you have, self-defense, fitness, any other question you might have, leave it in the comment box. So basically, I'm here to just, answer some of your questions, your concerns, anything about training, nutrition, whatever you really want. Um, all my um, all my new videos, however, guys, all my new content is on my website, nickdrossos.com. This is where I'm putting all my new material. So go check out nickdrossos.com, as well as I have my instructor course, April 11 and 12 here in Montreal. Spaces are limited to only 8 people. I only do this once a year. I have level 1 in April, level 2 in June, as well as I'm working on level 3, which will be a retreat. So go check that out at nickdrossos.com, as well as I have the Hero program, these self-defense step-by-step tutorials, and a lot more. So go check that out on my website. And as well as let me know what are some of the new self-defense series you guys want me to do. I've heard, home invasion, self-defense and MMA in the street, security, how to win a bar fight. Let me know what is the content you guys want me to make. However, all this will be on my website, as well as brand new fight analysis. So again, just go check that out at nickdrossos.com. So the question is, Nick, how do I know if my martial arts works in real life and for self-defense? So I get this question all the time, and I forgot the name of the person who wrote it. He asked me a few times, and I said, let me just pop the camera open and answer this question. So here's the thing, right? So if let's say you're doing kung fu, karate, taekwondo, jiu-jitsu, whatever it is, okay? How do you know if it works in the street? Probably one of the best things that you could do, and this is what I do in terms of my training, is do a full out scenario. That means put on a helmet, put on a gear, get 2 of your buddies or 2 of your friends and ask them to do a scenario. That means what I do in training, and I used to do as well, it'd be like, okay, go to the bathroom. We're 2 or 3 guys. When you come out of the bathroom, pretend you're getting out of the car, you're walking to your house, and we play out a scenario. Now the trainee has no clue what we're doing. He gets out and I walk up to him and we're like, hey man, what's up? What's going on? Hey, what are you doing here? We start pushing, shoving, and then at any point an attack might happen. This allows the trainee or yourself, if you do martial arts, to experience your training, not from when your hands are up, but from the point where the person's in your face, he's talking, he's pushing. You have to work your awareness skills, your verbal defense skills, you're assessing a situation, positioning your attackers. Do I go preemptive? Do I wait till they strike first? Are they holding a weapon? And when the fight breaks out, you're going to experience a whole complete different dynamic than what you normally train, right? So this is the first way for you to actually see, does my self-defense or my training, my martial arts training work in the street? The second thing that I tell people is anytime you have a system that's teaching you more than 2 or 3 steps to a movement, in my book, I know it's bullshit. Meaning if you're learning knife defense and you're learning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it is impossible that your attacker will play out 3 to 7 movements exactly the same, right? And if you don't believe me, here's a test. Do a scenario 5 times and play out the same attack 5 times. And you will see that every time your attacker will have a different response. It is impossible that the attacker will respond that same way. Now, you want to even make it harder? Change the environment. Same scenario. Change the attacker. It will change every single time. It is impossible. You will never fight the same fight twice. By pressure testing and by putting this full out scenario, you will find out really quickly if your training works in a real fight, right? So again, I think one thing that makes me different from all the other self-defense and martial artists is that I pressure test the shit out of my stuff, right? When I teach one arm lapel, I take a guy shorter, my height, I took Big Nick who's 6'7", I took Moose, and I realized pretty quickly, it's impossible that every move is gonna work with every single person. Some guys I didn't have the reach to strike them, I had to use my legs. The fight just changed in that very moment. So if your system that you're training has a 1, 2, 3 system, I could probably guarantee you your training full out will not work. Now, if you tell me, yeah, but Nick, I'm working on muscle memory. That's not muscle memory if your movement depends on your attacker, especially if you're looking at 4, 5, 7 steps, right? When you're doing muscle memory, if you're shadow boxing, if you're shadow fighting, your movement and your combos are constantly training. A fighter doesn't go in, right? And then an MMA fighter would go in the cage and be like, okay, I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the fight is over. No, they go in and they fight. They train, they go in, they fight, and every fight changes. It's not the same, it doesn't look the same every single time, even from fighter to fighter. So when I see these people teach this self-defense system 1, 2, 3, I ask myself, why would you believe that the guy with the gun, you're gonna go 1, 2, 3, and he's not gonna move? I might trap, he might flinch and pull back. He might try to punch me. He might try to kick me. He might try to tackle me. I might slip. And a great thing I tell people, do you slip to train and do you train to slip and fall? No. Well, guess what? That's the reality of being in the street. So that's another measure for it. So the other measure is, the third one, do you train your awareness and what we call your verbal judo? Are you taught in your training to be aware, to understand, your distance, your space, body language, movement, concealed weapons, angles? This is the most important prior to the fight. And are you also training your verbal? How to talk to him, how to lower his guard, how to raise his ego, how to pattern interrupt, how to control his mind, how to draw him in, how to take somebody who's about to kick your ass and make him feel like shit for about wanting to pick a fight with you. That's part of your training. That is so important. I'm focusing on more and more on that. Does 70% of fights end up on the ground or standing up? Please explain. This is like, here's the problem, is that somebody said something many years ago and people just repeat it. Not all fights end up to the ground. Some yes and some no. A lot do. But the idea for me is not to take it to the ground. Why? You have weapons and you have multiple attackers, the biggest factor. So I don't like going down to the ground. I want to keep the fight standing because I want to get out as quickly as possible. Let me take some of your questions now, guys. Hi, sir. Your fighting skills are very nice. Thank you, sure. Let me look at this at the beginning, guys. Which is the best martial arts for the street fight? So which is the best martial arts for the street fight? The one, like I said, that's going to cover a good understanding of psychology, fear, stress management, everything that happens up here. The one that's going to cover a lot of awareness, how to make yourself a hard target the moment you get out of your house, and as well as when you're faced with an attacker, what am I looking at? Am I looking at his hands or am I looking at his eyes? Is he angling off? Is he stepping back? Is he trying to circle? Is he making a signal? Is he clenching his fist? Is he grinding his teeth? Is he angling down? Is he turning red? What is going on? This is shit that people don't train, and then they end up getting sucker punched or surprised, right? But this is when you're supposed to be ready, right? You're supposed to be studying all this without him knowing. And then when you're looking at the physical, what does your training look like? Right? Are you just learning slow motion, repetitive movements over and over and over? Imagine the sequences and scenarios you need to cover every possible attack. It is endless. So no, right? So if you're training like that, I can tell you that's not the martial arts that you want to train. Does jiu-jitsu trainer after hernia surgery, does training jiu-jitsu after hernia surgery good or bad? It depends. I'm assuming you got to leave at least 6 to 8 weeks after hernia. I would probably stay away from it because again, you're pressing on it. It's not like you're strength training or if you're boxing. But I would probably keep away from that. What's up, Sean Winter? Can you explain your day-to-day stretching routine? My day-to-day stretching routine, I actually use the foam roller a lot. So I try to roll, and I won't lie to you guys, I've neglected a little bit on the stretching, but I'm planning to go back to doing hot yoga to help me with my stretching, right? So it is important, but I also believe that if you train properly, your body will naturally stretch through each exercise. So I do focus on that as well, but I am getting back to the stretching as I get older. We do lose range of motion, we do lose mobility. Well, we don't lose it, but we definitely want to maintain it and strengthen it. Nick, if I was ever in a fight, I would definitely do what I've seen you do. Thank you. Thanks, James. And keep it simple. Could you do maybe an extra video on how to defend from a sword and a gun? Absolutely. That's a great one, guys. I've never done that. How many fights end up on the ground? Is being 5'6" tall a problem for fighting? See, if you're 5'6", right, obviously you don't have the height advantage, but you got to learn how to use that. This is why in every self-defense system, I say create a system within your system. Find out what works for you. I'm 5'6". Well, the last thing I want to do is bring up my hands and try to square off with a guy because I have the disadvantage of range. I want to break that range by getting the person close. So, you want to, sorry guys, 1 second, somebody rang the doorbell. So if I'm 5'6", 5'8", 6'11", 6'5", whatever it is, I want to figure out how can I use my height and my weight? What are my strengths and what are my weaknesses? You want to find out, go into sparring, go train, do some scenarios, and you'll really find out quickly that shit, I'm 5'6", against a much taller guy. Maybe I'm not going to tell him, hey, let's go and fight. Maybe I'll find a way to draw him in, bring up my hands. And again, with that disadvantage, you got to go preemptive and do a sucker punch. You got to strike him first. What are the signs for martial arts? What are good signs is a red flag? Tesla, that's a great... So what are the signs? To me, the first thing is, if you're boxing, if it's self-defense with boxing, boxing is not self-defense, right? Yes, there's great elements, but boxing is boxing. Self-defense, karate is karate, martial arts. Make sure that what you're, look at what they're promoting and what they're actually teaching. The second thing is, find out the credentials of who's teaching it, right? Where have they taught? What's their experience? What's their background? Do they have an ego? Because that's huge. If the guy has an ego, I don't give a fuck how good he is. You're never going to learn with somebody who has an ego because he's going to be trying, it's all going to be about him. He's going to be trying to prove more how good he is and what he can do versus teaching you the best type of, teaching you as best as he can. So that's one thing, right? Connect, find an instructor that you connect with that actually cares and loves what he does and really puts his heart into teaching you self-defense, who that, even if you challenge him in a constructive, good way, he's not going to be like, no, just, you don't know what you're talking about. I've had students challenge me. I've had instructors challenge what I teach, and I'm open to it. Let's go, man. Oh, you think this doesn't work? Why? Okay, let's try it. And if I'm wrong, I'll be like, great. I guess I need to change something in my system. So that's very important that you need in order for you to grow as, in your self-defense training, martial arts training, as well as a person as well, right? In your own personal development. To me, it's all kind of tied in together. The other thing is make sure that your school covers, does scenario training, that they're training realistic, that they're doing a live drills. It's not just slow motion, repetitive movements where you're just trying to learn one technique over and over, and make sure that it's simple. I always tell people it's not about learning more, it's about learning less and training the shit out of it. Is Wing Chun how to make your adrenaline not sabotage you in a fight? What do you think? Little kids, James, that's a great question. I started my son, can't remember if he was 6 or 5, around that age. He started with jiu-jitsu, right? I think it was 6 or 7 actually. He did jiu-jitsu, then I put him in Thai boxing. So it also depends on the maturity of the kid, the maturity of the child. You gotta put him there and start him with jiu-jitsu or start him with judo, because at that age they grab, they fall, they clinch, they push, they pull, and there's more realistic content than just hitting and kicking boards. So I would start him with jiu-jitsu. Adrenaline Nick, please answer my question. The bull thrower. Why does adrenaline make me feel weak? Actually, adrenaline doesn't make you feel weak. You're mistaking it for weakness because of the feeling that it gives you. You become overwhelmed by it, right? So when you get that adrenaline is your survival. Like, people get stabbed and shot under adrenaline and still fucking manage to survive and fight. So you need to rewire that and not see it as something that is playing against you, but it's something that is working for you. Okay, I know the feeling of the shakes, your heart racing, some organs are shutting down, most of it is rushing to your brain, to your heart, just to be able, it's your survival that's kicking in, all that, right? It's a lot more than that, but I don't want to break into the science of it, but I have looked into it, I've done my research on it, but just to keep it very simple, it's just you're mistaking it for fear. And I've seen this happen before. If you don't experience it often, it is very overwhelming. But breathe. The best thing I could tell you is do some full out scenarios where you could experience the adrenaline full out. And the more you do it, the more you're going to get familiar, and the more you're going to be able to control it and not resist it, and understand that it's there to help you survive anything that might happen. So, sorry guys, I'm trying to get to all your questions. Why am I weak? Adrenaline, complete. Any tips for 40-year-old starting martial? Look, I'm 43. There's never an age. I had Tom Stewart, who's 63 years old, who came to train with me. He's doing my online program. And then he came from Toronto to train with me. Is there any tips? Obviously, you're over 40. I'm not saying we're old. We still have the strength. We still have a lot that we could still do past 40. The only difference I've noticed past 40 is the recovery, the injuries. So you want to make sure that the first thing is train somewhere where it's a safe environment, where you don't have any chances or less chances of getting concussions and broken ribs and broken nose. Past 40, I mean, like I did in my 20s and my 40s, I don't enjoy getting punched in the head. I don't enjoy breaking my ribs. I don't enjoy busting my knee. So my training has changed. It is a lot more I'm a lot more careful in terms of it, a lot less injury as much as possible. So work on your strength training, work on your conditioning. Find a school that you can learn self-defense by doing a live drills and doing impact, but without something that might be too high risk in injury. So that's probably my best tip to you. I explain sometimes I lose memory in a fight. So the fact that you lose memory in a fight, that's kind of normal. What happens is, and again, when I'm in the ring and I've sparred, I'm in a different mindset. There's a different clarity. When you're in the street and I'm working in the clubs and I, saw fights, people get stabbed and shot and gunshots and full out brawls, it happens too fast. Your brain shuts down, your body goes into automatic pilot. And it's just like, I remember after a fight that we kicked out some guys and I'd be like, shit, like what happened? Fuck, I remember the guy grabbed me, he punched me, I fell. And it's like, tak, because it happens too fast for you to actually memorize everything that's going on as you're fighting. And you don't want to. I don't want to be there thinking and fighting at the same time. You know, the brain shuts down, it goes into automatic pilot, and survival instinct kicks in, and hopefully you've trained something enough time that your body will naturally do it. And this is not only me saying it, this is from actually trained fighters that worked in clubs with me, and and that trained with me, and they'd be like, fuck man, I don't remember shit. I remember Sudan, a bouncer I worked with for years, he goes, I hit the guy, and I don't even remember what I hit him with because it was that fast. So this is, your memory loss is totally part of the whole process of when you're fighting, because it happens too fast. You're not gonna remember every movement you did through your fight. Like I said, it's only gonna be like pictures. ICF, I agree. To be, it's absurd to ask martial arts to works in a real fight. It has to do all with practitioners' ability to adapt in real situations. That's true. Real life, martial arts does work. I destroyed, well, that's great, man. At the end, if it works for you, I'm not here to say what martial art works and what doesn't. At the end, it's your life. You figure out what you think works for you. For me personally, I spent years learning Kung Fu. This stuff, I was taught to block here. Now I block, boom, where I step in. I always say, what's the quickest way for me to attack, to counterattack, and to keep it simple, right? So I don't want to spend, fucking 10 years and doing all these belts when I know most of the shit that's going to be taught will not be effective in the street. How do I know? I worked in, I spent years training in a gym, sparring, and I had the, working in clubs. I got to experience both the mindsets, physical, and that's where my source of teaching comes from. I think with martial arts that they most have invented a certain point. Absolutely true. The martial arts too. And I'm not saying, I remember doing Kung Fu, we were learning how to tiger claw. Okay, I finger jab, tiger claw, it's the same thing. It evolves. And look at UFC. When UFC started, right? When UFC started, they took big guys, small guys, and that was the first time jiu-jitsu became big and famous, because fucking Gracie was going in there and wiping everybody's, was wiping these big guys on the ground, choking them out. And with time, the martial arts got evolved to MMA, to what it is today, because you're having a karate guy fight a boxer guy, and you can see the advantages and disadvantages. And with time, every system evolved, every system kind of evolved, every fighter evolved. The martial arts MMA evolved to what it is today, and it's going to keep evolving as better fighters come out with better techniques or better ways, and it's just going to keep on moving forward. And that's, but to say martial arts are shit or don't work, I don't want to say that, because it's still the base of what we're teaching today. There's elements in there. On Kung Fu in practical terms. Look, I spent years doing Kung Fu Salam Hung Guard. That was my first martial arts I did. In what martial arts does physical strength give you an advantage? So I spent years doing Kung Fu Salam Hung Guard, and man, I loved it. I loved the discipline. I loved the training for it. I remember like all the stands and the bowing. It was cool, but I found out pretty fast that a lot of the shit wouldn't work. Right? And again, when over my years of training, and then I was, you work in a club and you have all this experience and you realize, holy shit, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't work. There's a lot of stuff that makes sense in theory, but doesn't work in real life. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be tweaking. There's a lot of stuff I learned that I'm never going to use. And that's what I built with my system and what I'm teaching, right? That's what I've put together to teach you guys. It's like, okay, how do I eliminate what's not of use? How do I keep what actually works? What is the most important that I should teach, right? And then how do I train the crap out of it? That means you do it over and over again, different scenarios, different drills. The training and the experience and the knowledge comes from the way you train and the drills that you do. I remember working in the clubs and teaching and being like, okay, guys, this week I saw this fight. I decided to put together a little drill. Oh, what are we doing? We're doing this drill because I saw this fight and I think it's interesting that this drill could help you prepare for this type of scenario. That's how it was built, what I teach. I'm not here to say I'm teaching something completely different. There's elements that other instructors are teaching, but it's the idea that this is my own, my style. I see that's exactly in that. I think that's what has separated me from most of the self-defense instructors. There is a realistic, oh yeah, I'm gonna watch the fight today for sure. I think that's what separates me from other instructors, and the realism I bring to the self-defense that I teach. It's not just theory. It's not one instructor taught me this and I'm just repeating. I bring in my own personal experience and my training. Does martial arts work for you in fights? Well, like I said, there are martial arts systems better than others. They each have their own good elements. Again, I talk about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a lot because I made a video and people think I was shitting on Jiu-Jitsu. I love Jiu-Jitsu, but if you think you're gonna armbar a guy with a knife, you're gonna die. If you think you're gonna take the guy down to the ground and choke him out as he's holding a knife and he's stabbing you, you're gonna die. But there is good elements of Jiu-Jitsu in there. Is boxing better than Kung Fu? So this is a great question. It depends. Are you being attacked by a knife? Right? You're not gonna outbox a guy with a knife. Maybe your Kung Fu might be a little bit better because you're also using your kicks. You might get lucky and kick him in the nuts. You might get lucky and kick him in the face. You might get lucky and parry and strike. So it's hard to say. It always depends. What is the scenario we're talking about? Right? And this is what people, but why is boxing good? You're gonna get your footwork, your speed, your timing, your agility. I think McGregor's gonna take it. Right? So that's pretty much it, guys. This was a really good live. Less is more. Sam, that's what I do. Less is more. To be honest with you guys, in 3 months, you have everything you could learn, okay? Everything you could learn in 3 months. After that, it's just training the crap over it, over and over and over again. And what I've done is once you learn it, okay, how are we gonna train it? Different type of scenarios, 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s, drills in closed spaces, open spaces, right? So that's everything that's in there. All right, guys, I gotta get out of here. Guys, I wanna thank you guys for watching. Stay safe, stand strong. Go visit my website, nickdrossos.com. April 11 and 12, I have my instructor course in Montreal. If you're interested, please let me know. Go visit my website, nickdrossos.com. Spaces are limited. I'm only taking 8 people. I have 3 people in there, so only 5 people can register. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, share the video. Stay safe, guys.